I want to say a few words about Sea Change's honorary leadership. As you know, we were honored for years by the commitment of President and Mrs. Bush. While not as visible in recent years, Senator Dianne Feinstein remains in her honorary role and continues to help Sea Change in ways out of the spotlight. Recently, she is recommitted to take an even more visible role in 2013. Her passion for fighting cancer is as strong as ever. So Senator Feinstein and Coach K will serve as honorary co-chairs of Sea Change. I do want to pass on from President Bush a charge. Is Jean here? Yes, Jean. If I may relay the charge that President Bush said, is you are to report back 5 accomplishments of Sea Change. And so we've got a lot of work ahead of us in these next day and a half. I don't want to have to send you back without that goal being met. I'm not going, and I'm happy to say I know we're not. I'm also happy to introduce our new honorary co-chair, Mike Krzyzewski, or he is as fondly known, Coach K. I thought about this last night. Tell me one person in the world who, when you say one letter, immediately people know whom you're talking about, and most significantly, Coach, immediately have positive associations, except possibly if they're from Carolina. Now, I don't know one individual that epitomizes more in people's minds, not only winning, but integrity and leadership. And so that's why when President and Mrs. Bush asked Coach K to carry on their honorary leadership of Sea Change, we were so fortunate. Coach, that's I know you're a heck of a recruiter, but when you have the President of the United States call, I suspect that that's quite a visit and an offer. They knew firsthand that he was dedicated to fighting cancer through his work with the V Foundation, Coaches v. Cancer, and the CEO Roundtable on Cancer. They knew he was a great coach, the winningest coach in college basketball. They knew he would bring a fresh perspective and access to new audiences for Sea Change. They also knew he was an even greater leader as a humanitarian of sport, an ambassador of education, a coach, a teacher, a friend, a family man, and a motivator. They know he can reach people. Quick story. I went home last night. Our 23-year-old is graduated from college, living at home, happily working. Most important thing about a millennial today. So I went home last night, and she said, in her sort of bored way, "Hey, Dad, what'd you do today?" And I said, "Alexandra, I had a chance to meet Coach K, and I have the privilege of introducing him tomorrow." Immediate respect. And she says, "Get a picture." If you've reached Alexandra, I know how many students of many generations that you have reached. You reached the nation and the world in this important cause. Coach K graduated from West Point after playing on the basketball team, earning 3 letters, serving as captain, and earning league honors as a player on the court. After serving 5 years as an officer in the Army, he began his college coaching career as a graduate assistant at Indiana University under Bobby Knight, his former coach at West Point. He then returned to West Point to take his first head coaching position for 5 years. And since 1980, Coach K has been the head coach of the Duke University men's basketball team. What an amazing tenure. 4 NCAA national championships, 12 times named as National Coach of the Year, and named to the Basketball Hall of Fame. And of course, we all watched again proudly this summer as he won and led our team to the 2nd Olympic gold medal to add to a long list of victories. We were honored that he accepted the invitation to become our honorary co-chair and remain very grateful to the President and Mrs. Bush and Jean Becker for their efforts in making this possible. As we have begun working together with Coach K, we're just beginning to appreciate the many parallels between bringing great players together to form a team and bringing great leaders together to act as one. So, Coach, you have a great team out in front of you in this room today. We're very fortunate to have a great coach to be our honorary co-chair. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Sea Change's honorary co-chair, Coach K.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you. I said last night, how it feels to be the dumbest person in the room, and you're listening to him. And so I don't know what that makes you. But then my daughter, who's with me, Debbie, my oldest daughter, said, "Dad, when you said that, I thought you were going to introduce me." So I would never do that to you. So I've been indoctrinated real well last night, first of all, to meet a number of you, and sense great enthusiasm, willingness to be here, and an excitement. Then at breakfast this morning, I picked the short straw and had to sit next to Gene. I mean, this ear is already, like guys have a number of words that they can only say during the day. Women have more. I live with 3 daughters and a wife, and they have more words than me. But we also can listen only to so much. So Gene was on this side, so this ear, which is a pretty big ear, is completely full. So thank you, Gene, for filling that. It's an honor for me and my family and our program at Duke and for Duke University to be involved with Sea Change. I've become really close friends with President and Mrs. Bush over the years, and as a former Army officer, when he asked me to take over as one of the co-chairs, the honorary co-chairs, I'm just accustomed to the military saying, "Yes, sir." And what I found is an unbelievable amount of excitement, and the fact that there's something that's going on here that has been good, but it can be better. And for all of you to get together and try to figure out what that is incredibly exciting. It's much more exciting than a basketball game. It's much more exciting than an Olympics. But maybe someone from that world to come into this world maybe might give a few ideas, something on how we might be able to do this better. When I see sea change, I actually think of constant change, and at different times we as people are reluctant to change. I know when I was growing up in the inner city of Chicago, all Polish people, Krzyzewskis and Kowalskis and Stanislavskis and Wojciechowskis, and I ended up marrying a Marsh. And we got married on graduation day, and she was Southern, she still is Southern Baptist, and I'm Catholic. How did that happen? And then I thought I was going to have sons, and I had 3 daughters, and which is great. Just don't be texted. I'm dead. But overall, at times we're reluctant to change, and change is good, and change in this case is necessary. I remember when Debbie, before she was married, we were watching TV, and we're sitting on a couch. Well, we don't have a couch, we got chairs, but sitting on a couch, and we're watching, and she comes up to me, and she puts her arms around me, and she says, "Daddy, I think I'm in love." And so I put my arms around her, and I said, "Honey, I love you too." And daddy and daughters, that's doesn't get better than that. She pushes me away, and she says, "Dad," excuse me, and I know I'm in trouble then, And she says, "Dad, I'm in love with Peter Savarino." I said, "Savarino? Savarino?" And I said, "Couldn't you have found a good Polish boy?" Then she sneaks up back and puts her arms around me and says, "Daddy, you're the only good Polish boy." So I said, "All right, marry the damn Italian." But then she has, her first 2 youngsters, her first 2 kids, our 2 grandsons. We have 8 grandchildren now. She has 4 of them. Their names are Joseph Battista Savarino and Michael Giovanni Savarino. Where's Wally and Stash? So change is good. Change is really good. That's what you're trying to affect. You're trying to affect change. And in doing that, you have to get sometimes out of your comfort zones. Each of you come here with an area of expertise that makes you one of the best in your field. And all of a sudden now you're in a meeting and you're spending a couple days and you're with other really good players. And then how do you make each other better to affect change? I think getting better means that you can't do it alone. If you did, then whatever silo that you're in right now would have already achieved all this. And so I tell my teams all the time, I ask them, is 2 better than 1? And most of the time the guy says, yeah, 2's better than 1. I said, not necessarily. 2 is only better than 1 if 2 can act as 1. And so, in other words, being on a team and acting as 1 is really the goal of what we're trying to do. And for these couple days, take off the uniform that you normally have and put on the sea change uniform. As a basketball coach, I try to get 5 guys playing as 1. I use the analogy of a fist. And I really think it's appropriate in this case because I really feel that we're not fighting cancer. A fight is you throw a few punches, there's a certain amount of time, and then the fight is over. You've either won or lost. Fighting cancer is just part of what we're doing. What we need to do is have a war against cancer. A war against cancer is really a series of fights. And throughout our country, there are people fighting every day. Some of them win, and some of them do not win. But all of them deserve the attention and the care that all of us, if we work together, then can provide them. We can help people not get cancer. We can help those who do have cancer beat it. And those that we haven't found a cure for, we can treat them in a way where their quality of life is at the highest possible level, to where when we win the war, we can look back and say, now we've been able to do that for everybody. Last night I asked how many cancer survivors are in the audience. If you don't mind me saying that again, and you feel it's okay to do that, would you raise your hand if you're a cancer survivor? And please look around the room. In every room in the United States where there are a number of people together, if I asked that question, there would be people raising their hands. And when they raise their hands, I get chills all over me because that's a win. That's a win. And then I want to know, how did you win? Why did you win? How can we help other people to win? And basically, you have to do it where you have to form teams. That's one of the things I'm good at. I'm not sure what a genome is. And I called President Bush, and he didn't know either. So, yeah. So I said, but I know it's important, all right? I know they're doing stuff at Duke, and I know it's all, I know that. But there are things I think that I can help you with that maybe you don't know about. And one of them is forming teams. I've done that my whole life. How do you get a group to play as 1? Basically, with this group in Sea Change, you are more of like an Olympic team. In other words, when I coach the Olympic team, I have a bunch of egos on my team and a huge bunch of talent. Well, a lot of people say, when you come here, leave your egos at the door. Why would you do that? I think it's one of the worst statements ever made. Like, all right, you're really good in this research, but when you come in here, I want you to be ordinary. And so what we say with the Olympic team is bring your egos in. But when we leave the room, we have a USA ego. And then when we're trying to figure out how that USA is going to win, don't hold back. In other words, you have a performance ego. And I want you during the next day and a half to have the sea change ego, but use your performance ego. In other words, as good as you are in what you're doing, in all these meetings, do not hold back. over the time that I've been associated with the Olympic team, I've had some unbelievable experiences, and I've learned a lot. In 1992, I was an assistant coach on what was called the Dream Team. They had Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, Scottie Pippen, Charles Barkley, Clyde Drexler, John Stockton, Karl Malone, Chris Mullin, and Christian Laettner. All right? These were, you got to win, right? I mean, you got, and on that team, and during that time, the U.S. really won easily because the world had not caught up to us yet in basketball. There were hardly any international players in the NBA, and they could just win. I mean, we had Jordan on our team. You're going to win, all right? And but I learned the most important lesson I learned with that team was something that I'd like to pass along to you. On the very first day of practice, we're having practice, and I just won with my Duke team 2 straight national champions. So in my world, just like in each one of you, you're a stud. Like you say, you want to see my national championship ring, and oh, you have a league. That's pretty good, but national champion. And all of a sudden, I'm with all these guys who, your ego starts shrinking a little bit, and that can happen. And my performance ego was right down here. And so we got through the first practice. I didn't make a mistake. I felt good. And sometimes in a meeting like this, you're just here, and you'll feel good giving minimal information, minimal participation. I'm going to listen and all that. And all of a sudden, at the end of the practice, I'm sitting down drinking a Diet Coke, and Michael Jordan starts walking towards me. And in college basketball, there's a little rivalry between Duke and North Carolina, and he's North Carolina and I'm Duke. And so he's walking towards me, and he's at the top of the totem pole. He is the best. And there are people in the audience who you all know are considered the best. All right? You're the Jordans of your area. Maybe not that good. Don't let your ego get too far now, but hot shot. He's at the top, and I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. I'm an assistant coach, and I'm from college, and all these studs. So he's walking towards me, and my feeling is, just with a bunch of guys together, is he's going to bust my chops. He's going to put me in my place and say, you stinking Duke coach, make sure you take care of my gear or whatever, And but as he walks towards me, he says to me, he said, "Coach." So he didn't call me a name or anything like that. And he says, "Coach, I'd like to work on my offensive moves for about a half hour. Would you work with me? Would you please work with me?" So I had a Diet Coke or Jordan. Which would you choose? So I do it, and then the thing is, he could have said, "Hey, idiot, get over here," and I would have gone. And you would have done the same thing. There's no question you would do the same thing. But he didn't. And then afterwards, after we got through, he said, "Coach, thanks a lot." Okay, so what does that mean? The very first thing is that in all that we're doing, there is no totem pole in sea change. The totem pole doesn't go from the person who, a number of you have established yourself in the medical profession at the highest level. And there's others who are trying to attain that. Michael Jordan's totem pole did not go this way. It went this way. In other words, everybody is important. And I want that to be the very first thing that starts these meetings. Every one of you is important. And an idea knows no age, knows no silo, no gender, no nationality, no religion. An idea can come from anybody. And if you don't set the stage for everybody being able to have a chance to express themselves, then one of the failings of the meetings would be the thing that is not said. And so you have to create an environment where it is okay to say things, all right? And how do you do that? You do that, first of all, by knowing people's names. I know we have name cards and all that kind of stuff. You should get to know one another, all right? You should get to know. That's what Michael said. He said, coach. And then when we're doing these things, please and thank you, and then follow up and making sure that everyone feels a part of this. If we do that, more ideas will be shared. As I became then the head coach of the Olympic team, and I've been on, the three greatest teams I've ever been on was the Dream Team and our 2008 Olympic winners in Beijing and this past year in London. And when we started to form the team and had all these egos, what we talked about is how do we live together? Like you have an agenda, you have all these, but how do you live? What rules are there? Well, we got rid of the rules and we developed standards. Our very first meeting with the 2008 Olympic team, I had a meeting in a smaller room than this, and I had all the guys together. Before that meeting, I had individual meetings with Jason Kidd, who's one of the all-time great guards in the game, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Kobe Bryant. All right, these, Kobe Bryant and LeBron James and Kevin Durant are the three best players in the world right now. And so before that meeting, I said, I'm going to have a meeting tonight about how we're going to live. And so they looked at me like, I knew we shouldn't have hired a college coach to do this, where's the NBA coach? And I said, I'm going to talk about standards. A standard is the way you do things all the time. And if you're part of a group, you make each other do it all the time. And I feel that as we progress and see change, we should come up with standards of how we're going to work together, of how we can make each other better. Our standards, we came up with a number of them, but I told each one of these guys individually, two of my standards have always been, when we talk to each other, we look each other in the eye, and when we talk, we always tell each other the truth. There's no quibbling, there's no half-truths, and we say it whether it's convenient or not. In other words, in your profession and in mine, we need to have the truth right away. We don't need to know a half-truth or a little bit, and then a day later, after we've made decisions, find out more. And so in these meetings, I would like to propose that two of our standards would be to look each other in the eye and tell each other the truth. Then I asked these guys, you can say whatever you want at the meeting tonight. Now, again, that opens it up, know what the heck they're going to say. And I said, but I would like for you to say something. And they started, well, I'll tell you right now. I said, I don't want to hear it now. I want it to be genuine. So we get there that night, and we're in a meeting, and I start this, and look each other in the eye and tell each other the truth. And now you're waiting, the moment of truth. Will anyone put their hand up? And Jason Kidd put his hand up right away. And he got up and he said, Coach, we should never be late. We should have respect for one another, that when we're meeting, we're never late. Now that sounds like easy, but in the NBA, if you're late, they fine you $1,000 or something like that, all right? For them, that's 5 seconds of playing time in one game. It's like throwing a penny on the floor or something like that. And so, and I asked them, I said, are you guys cool about we're never late? Everybody agreed. And one thing about standards, rules are something that you make somebody do. When you have a standard, you have ownership. It's a really good thing. It's really the best thing. Because why would you not want a group where everybody owns what we do? Instead of, we have these rules, and now I have to conform to them. And so as we go along, we can make up our own standards because we're in constant change. And so the standards will fit the fight, the war that we are fighting against cancer. We talk a little bit more. One of the coaches raises his hand and said, we should be flexible because we're going to be in a lot of different situations. Okay, flexibility. And all of a sudden, Dwayne Wade raises his hand. So it's worked. I got two of them at least who are going to do it. And Dwayne says, Coach, if we have each other's back, whenever we do something, we have to do it together. When one guy steps forward, everyone should step forward. And that became a standard. And What I then did was explain to the guy, I said, do you know what Dwayne is saying? Obviously, they said, yeah. And a lot of people will shake their heads like they know. And so sometimes you explain it a little bit more. And Dwayne said, basically, guys, we're playing for the 3 letters on the front of our jerseys, not the name on the back. They always have their own names on the back. And I said, but the other thing it means is, as you go forward with something bold, you have an idea. You have a course of action. And if you step forward without knowing if everyone else is going, how big is your first step? It's not going to be very big because you're going to be worried about, are they coming with you? But if you feel the support of your team and you're all in it together, you step forward boldly. And that, to me, is one of the great standards we should have for sea change. When one of us does have an idea, it's our idea. It's not Jim's, and certainly not Gene's. But you have no recourse right now. I can get you the whole time. In other words, have each other's back. As long as we come up, we win, we all win. I made a point then, I said, I think it's a cool thing. Can anybody tell me the leading scorer on the 1992 Dream Team? And nobody could. It was Charles Barkley who actually didn't start. I said, you will not be remembered by how many points you score or how many rebounds you get. We will only be remembered if we win. We will also only be remembered if we lose. In other words, we're talking about one of the great standards of team building, and that's collective responsibility. As we go forward, are we going to win together? Are we going to lose together? But the word together is the thing that we should have all the time. So there are a number of other guys talking, and all of a sudden, Kobe Bryant raises his hand. I said, oh man, I got Kobe too. This is great. And Kobe says, Coach, if we play defense and rebound, we can beat anybody. And basically what he was the alpha dog for me in 2008. In other words, he was out here and everybody was going to look to see what Kobe was going to do. And what Kobe did was say, he was going to do the fundamentals. 2 days before that meeting, he came in early to start practice, and we were meeting as a staff. Knocks on the door, peeks in, he said, how are you guys doing? And came in, I gave him a big hug. I recruited him at Duke. He was supposed to come to Duke. Stinker. And would have been 5 or 6 national championships, unless I screwed that up. But he came in, he says, Coach, can I talk to you for a while? And I said, sure. So he left the room and he says, I want you to do me a favor. I was screwing around with him. I said, yeah, I can do you more than one favor. And he says, no, this is serious business. I said, what is it? He said, I want to guard the best player on the perimeter of every team that we play. And then he paused. And then he leaned forward to me and he looked me right in the eyes. He said, Coach, I promise I'll kill him. I'll demolish him. And now he's the leading scorer in the NBA, had 50-point games, and basically he knew coming into this that he would have to do some of the fundamentals. But if he did the fundamentals, just like with all of you, there's certain of you that have a certain stature, but if you repeat some of those fundamentals, he became our best defensive player. Actually, in our first practice the next day after this meeting, he didn't take a shot. Can you imagine that? He did not take a shot. After the practice, I called him over. I said, Kobe, this destroy thing? He says, you know what? I said, yeah, but I've seen you destroy people offensively too. So, but basically what he was trying to do is make sure that he was interested in the 3 letters across the chest. All right? Then we had 13 standards, and LeBron has never spoken. It took him some time. You can see in his history he's taken time doing things, and making decisions. And so all of a sudden, I'm ready. I'm kind of dancing around, wondering if he's going to punk me. All right, So am I going to have this thing with him or whatever? And then all of a sudden he raises his hand. And he speaks for 2 minutes, and he says something which I think should be our first standard with Sea Change. He said, no excuses. He says, Coach, I've dreamed of playing with Dwight Howard and Kobe Bryant, Carmelo Anthony, having Chris Paul, Jason Kidd, and all these guys on. We can all make each other better. There's no question that we should win and that we're going to win. And there can never be an excuse from anybody on this team. Basically, that's what we should have. We can look around this room and say, even though I'm in this specific area and I'm a stud in this area, there's some stud in another area. And what would you do if you shared practices? Before we played in 2008, I went to Akron, Ohio to meet with LeBron. And I asked him about our team, and I tried to develop an even closer relationship with him. And I said, what do you think of our team? He said, well, I think Jason Kidd is the best passer in the NBA. He said, I think I'm a good passer, but I want to get better. Well, for the next 2 years when he was with Jason Kidd, every meeting he sat next to Jason Kidd. When they did extra shooting, he was with Jason Kidd. And all of a sudden, something that he did well, he's as good as anybody in the NBA in passing the ball right now. He also said, he wouldn't say this right now, he said, this is in 2007, he said, Kobe's the best player in the NBA and he prepares the best. I want to learn how to prepare. There are different types of players, and so you can share best practice, and now he learned how to prepare. He's the best player in the NBA. They make each other better. My feeling in putting an Olympic team together, just like in keeping this team together and making it really play great music, it's kind of like if you ever heard a great piano player, and all of a sudden you add, a guitarist, a singer, a sax, and they're the best in what they do. And whatever music one of them was able to do, the combination of all of them creates greater music. But it also brings out something a little bit more in that piano player, because he or she is not doing it alone anymore. Somebody's singing a song and saying, man, I got to do that even a little bit better. And that's what I found with working with the Olympic team, is that you have a chance to share practices and make each other better. And all of a sudden, the product that occurs is the best possible product. And that's what we need to do with our Sea Change team. But if you only hear and see during these meetings, we will not accomplish what we have to accomplish. You see, if you're in a fight, and then you're in a war, there has to be emotion. You have to give it up. You can't live in a safe zone and use your intellectual knowledge and your social graces to, you're going to hear things, you're going to see things. There has to be times, where in a meeting or as even throughout the year where you feel what you're doing. If you feel what you're doing, then your heart becomes part of this. And if your heart, mind, and body is coordinated with other people whose hearts, minds, and bodies are together, we'll get it done. And so what we've tried to do over the years is put our guys in positions where they might feel. In 2008, before we went to win gold in Beijing, we took our team picture in New York. And we did a media blitz up there, and we took our team picture in front of the Statue of Liberty. We took a ferry out into New York Harbor, and the ferry docked, and in the background was the Statue of Liberty. We got into suits first, and then our uniforms. And as we're doing that, Carmelo Anthony says, damn, Coach, this is big. And there are different times, well, it hit him at that time. In other words, I got a U.S., there's the Statue of Liberty, and so what I would like to try to do during my time and working with all of you is to provide some moments where you might feel it. Because if you feel it, maybe some of the things that you haven't thought about or saw for a while comes out. Because all of you have vested your whole lives, to fighting cancer, and somehow we have to get that feeling out. After taking the picture, I took them to the side of the boat and I said, "Do you guys know what that is?" And they said, "Coach, it's the Statue of Liberty." I said, "No, do you know what that land is there, that island?" And one of them said, "Ellis Island." And this was in 2008. And this is a true story, and then it's embellished. I embellished it because I'm a coach and I can allowed to embellish, all right? So, what the hell? And so I said, in 1908, 100 years ago, my grandfather, Joseph Petuk, was on Ellis Island, and it's true. I'm in the Ellis Island Hall of Fame because of the courage my grandfather had in coming from Poland. And he's there, and he's got 2 suitcases. And Wally's on his left, and Wally's on his left, Stash is on his right. They knew what the heck they were doing, Debbie. All right? And my grandfather, and this is where I embellish it, my grandfather says, "You know, Wally and Stash, 100 years from now, my grandson Mike is going to coach the United States Olympic basketball team." And Wally and Stash say, "Joseph, you dumb Polak, you're nuts. That'll never happen." He says, no, my grandson Mike is smart. He will be able to do it. He will be able to do it. And the guys are laughing and whatever. And then I knew something about each one of them, their backgrounds. And I said, "Carmelo, what about your grandmother?" And then a couple of them had ancestries where they're slaves. And we brought in, I said, on August 24th, and I always like to, I got chills right now thinking about, on August 24th, our national anthem will be played twice. The very first time will be played before the game. And at that time, I would like for you to dedicate, when you have your hand over your heart, when our national anthem is played, I would like for you to dedicate that game, not to our country or to us. I want you to play for the person who put you there. I don't want you to put that person's name and write it on your shoe. I don't want you to get a haircut where you put it in your head. I don't want you to do any of that. I would like for you today to think of that one person, put that person in your heart, and on that day, on August 24th, as you have your hand on your heart, play for that person. And I said, then when the national anthem is played again after the game, you will see our flag raised above all the others. Those are the moments that like if you looked at our team before after warm-ups before the game, a number of them are crying. I'm crying my eyes out before the game. And what it is that you have to be emotional. With this year's team, we did things with the military. Here in Washington, D.C., we came here for 3.5 days. And Marty Dempsey, who's the chair of the Joint Chiefs, is a really close friend of mine. And we got together and we created different moments. We had a practice in front of 4,000 troops, okay, and 200 wounded warriors. And after the practice, Marty had 12 of his servicemen and women line up. They're all from the Army. And in the Army, you have an American flag Velcroed right here. They lined up our players, and what they did was took their American flags off and gave it to our players, okay, as a sign to take with them to London. Marty Dempsey took his off and gave it to me, which I carried every day in my pocket to make sure that I understood that we were playing for something bigger than us. The next day, we were able to go to Arlington Cemetery. And at Arlington Cemetery, they gave us the honor of laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. And then we stopped at a certain section of Arlington Cemetery where the Navy SEAL group that had killed bin Laden, but then a couple weeks later were involved in a Chinook accident where a number of them were killed. There were 8 of those heroes in front of us. And so our whole team stopped there. and Marty Dempsey, and there was actually a SEAL there who was paying his respects, told us about the selfless service that was there. And so to get emotion involved in all this is what I'm going to try to do, as I get to know our team better. But you should take the time to learn how to feel, to learn how to give, put your heart into what we're doing. Once we got to London, I never take motivation for granted. Kobe Bryant, in 2008, we wrote a book on the Olympics, and my youngest daughter and I, Jamie, she knows how to write. Just it's either you or Gene. I can go right or left on the. And Kobe Bryant said, Jamie, since I was 17 and left high school, no one has ever tried to motivate me. They've paid me. And they pay me millions of dollars. But no one tries to motivate me. He says, your dad and his staff try to motivate us every day. And so we don't take motivation for granted. And so when we got to London, we had to pace our team a certain way because of how the NBA season was last year, condensed, and it lasted long. And they're physically tired and emotionally a little bit spent. But as we were getting ready to play, in the important games, we had a game against Argentina to determine whether we're going to be the number 1 seed or not. I started a series of motivational tapes that we made up for them. And one of them I'd like to share with you today. It's the one that we showed a week before we won the gold medal game, and it was the first in a series of 4. The word that I use to describe it is emotion. And then what we try to do in the emotional videos is talk about strong faces, shared opportunities, how you share, and reinforce certain words that epitomize our standards. So I'd like for you to just spend a couple minutes and imagine yourselves being LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, all these guys, and sitting in a small meeting room, getting ready to play Argentina for their country. And so as you go forward now in this next day and a half, I would love for you, first of all, thank you for letting me be the honorary co-chair, but I would like for you to go through where you see, you listen, and if you can feel. Everybody is the same. Everybody's idea is important. And when we walk out, we're playing for the sea change on the front of our jerseys. I almost maybe should get shirts or something that say that. Throughout the time that I'm honored and privileged to be a part of this organization, I would hope at different times I could add maybe a little bit different perspective on teamwork and trying to get a little bit more emotional in what we're doing. You all are the players, just like when I'm doing it. I only win if the players are really good and they're together. As your honorary chair, during my time of being one of the coaches, we will only be judged by what you do, what we do. Two's better than one if two can act as one. Imagine if for the next day and a half, and then we take it on afterwards, if all of us can act as one in the war against cancer. Some amazing things have happened, but there are more amazing things to come. Until everybody who has cancer has the ability, when asked the question, who are the cancer survivors in this room, where all of them who have had cancer would be able to lift their arms, then our work is not done. Godspeed in what you're doing. Again, thank you for allowing me to be part of the organization, and best of luck. Thank you.